With the bus stop conversation, that was one of the favorite parts of the book for our group. What is your take on it from a collective perspective? Yes, we have these individual soul contracts that we create, but just kind of looking back in the last year and a half with the pandemic, with the BLM protests, with the 2020 election, and then now with what's happening with Israel Palestine, there seems to be this like growing theme of how a divide is like cancer within our society, and our inability to have dialogue with people with opposing views. What is your take as far as like a collective contract that we have?
It's totally happening. What's happening in every cell of our body is happening in our whole body. What's happening in our whole body is happening in the body of humanity. We're living in a holographic universe. So literally with Carillion photography about 40 years ago, it came onto the mainstream with research that was showing that this energy field that I'm speaking about, if you can take a maple leaf, a leaf off of a maple tree, which is one of the first projects that they demonstrated this, they could, with Carillion photography, assign different colors to different heat vibrations, measuring this energy field. And there would be this energy field around the whole leaf in the perfect shape of the maple leaf, like the Canadian flag. That's the shape. And then they could cut half of the leaf away, and the shape of the whole leaf would still be there in terms of what they could photograph as far as the energy field. So what they were realizing was the whole leaf is there in the energetic template, just like when they would shine this hologram through a single cell of the leaf, they would see the image of the entire tree. It was mind-boggling to science and introducing this idea that what exists everywhere, anywhere, exists everywhere. So if we just translate that out into this streams of consciousness and group consciousness and unity consciousness, it makes perfect sense that these energetic patterns are here on the individual level, in the family level, in the community level, and in race consciousness and further. So I like this saying, and I think I said it in the book too. If I didn't, I should have, that big beings take on big projects. And that should have been underlined and bolded. And I didn't get to have the final say on all those kinds of edits, but it would have had arrows pointing to it, like big beings take on big projects in neon lights, because it would allow people to realize that if someone is the victim of, and I don't really like to use victim because I ultimately want people to know how empowered they truly are. Yeah. But if they are bearing the brunt of prejudice, abused or abandoned or had prejudice exercised against them, or all of the above, there is this essence that started to show up inside of my clinical research and inside of the research that I was doing then later in larger and larger and larger groups of people all the time, that the people who are impacted with multiple traumas and things happening in their lives, repeated or massive, either over, a short period of time, something really big, or something moderate, but, impactful over a long period of time, has a huge impact on our system. And what I have found in working with people over the past 40 years, plus watching my father, who was a pioneer in energy medicine, these people are the equivalent of what we might call like an old soul. And they're here to help break up this unawareness, this sleepiness in our consciousness, this dualistic, prejudiced manner of surviving in the world, this survival attitude that I'm going to get mine before the getting's gone, or while the getting's good, or I'm going to win in spite of you, or I'll step on whatever I have to make it happen. And as people are being impacted by those types of behaviors, what I have found is that those people are extraordinary people. It is almost as if the soul volunteered to come in and handle some of that, shoulder some of that as a collective, to help bring attention until it gets big enough and the voice gets big enough. Even if the voice was unspoken for years, I feel that if you look at something like BLM, meaning that the moment that it started really surfacing for us again, or even back to the Me Too that was happening with sexual abuse with so many women, as soon as one person, spoke, and then boom, 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 it just started rolling out, was because the collective consciousness was holding that And it was time for it to birth up and out. And it was time for momentum to be gathered and to be potent enough that we could make a difference in these ways once and for all. And I truly feel that humanity is seated at a moment where these types of transformations are primed for true transformation, for lasting transformation, because so much of it is up all at once, and so much vulnerability is exposed, and so much power is rushing forward in the midst of that vulnerability that was created when the pandemic hit and everyone was sent home, and everyone just had to everyone just had to sit and be with themselves. And what started to rise up in those moments was, hey, I've been sitting with this thing for far too long. You sit me down and let me percolate on this, it's going to come up and out. And so the angst and the anxiousness and the dualism and the polarization that has happened in our communities around the world, I think is part of a healing process that is surfacing this energy that has been incorrectly pocketed and suppressed for far too long. So, it's my intention to contribute to that process of how can we then allow this new voice to come out with grace instead of the anger and the retribution that's wanting to take place to even the score. And rightfully so, something that's been suppressed and people that have been abused and abrasively abandoned or treated or mistreated for so long that, the natural human instinct is to come out fighting. And I'm, spending my energy out in the world right now, really encouraging people to find a way to harness that power. And instead of just fighting back and having, fight against fight, mental body against mental body, dualism against dualism, can you route that in such a fashion in your own system that you can come forward in holism and shed light on how ridiculous the polarization and the duality, the dualism has been. Because when we can speak in that fashion, it has a tone of wisdom to it that can make for a lasting transformation, rather than just causing the other side to want to rise up again and rise up again and rise up again to ultimately have their stake in the ground.